So, did you see the Biden speech yesterday?
I did.
Yeah, it's great. It was great.
Lots of good stuff in there, Pat.
Lots of good stuff. Lots of fun, common sense gun reform
that's
things.
what I was thinking.
Common sense?
This is common sense.
And you know what? These people who talk about the Second Amendment, this has nothing to do with the Second Amendment.
No.
I love the Second Amendment like my own grandfather, like great, because it's pretty old. So I love the Second Amendment like it's my great-great-great-great-grandfather. I really do. I love it. It's just that, there's some common sense things that need to be done.
Well, and eventually great-great-grandmothers and fathers pass away.
Thank you.
And we still love them, but they're not here anymore. That's just like the Second Amendment. We love it so. However, get out. That's essentially what they were saying yesterday.
Yeah.
You mentioned common sense, and we mock this often because that's what they use. Can we get, by the way, the Biden gun shows, SOT 7 from Pat's list? Because in some ways, he actually is proposing common sense gun reforms. And I want to...
And in other ways, he's just flat out lying through his communist teeth.
And this clip in particular, he's doing both of them, I think.
Yes.
And let me explain why, because it's not how they mean it common sense. Here is Joe Biden on gun shows.
Most people don't know it. You walk into a store and you buy a gun, you have a background check. But you go to a gun show, you can buy whatever you want, and no background check.
No.
What?
No.
That's terrible news.
Yeah, it's not true either.
It's not true at all.
It's not true.
It's a total lie. Now, I have purchased a gun at a gun show.
Oh, have you?
I have.
And so you just walked in and they gave it to you and you left,
They just threw it at me. It was a drive-through.
Did you even have to pay for it?
Yeah,
I bet they didn't even care if you paid for it.
All they asked is look, you don't have to pay for it as long as you promise to murder innocents. And I was like, okay,
all right.
I'll go out and I'll find some. No, I got a background check, went through the entire process. The overwhelming majority of gun show sales go through this process. Only private sales, like if I'm selling a gun to Pat, I am not a dealer. I do not have the
licensed.
I am not a licensed dealer, right?
Yeah.
So I am not the type of person who has the resources, or how would I get a background check on someone if I'm selling one gun? I'm not a dealer.
Right.
If I'm giving it to my son, for example, he's a little too young, but when he grows up, if I'm like, you know what, Zach wants a gun, and I have this one, he can have it. I'd have to go do a background check on my son. There are reasons why there are a very, very, very limited amount of gun sales that do not go through background checks. But yeah, I went to a gun show. But I think the common knowledge, the common sense says what he's saying is true, right? Wait a minute. You could just walk into a gun show and buy something without a background check, buy whatever you want? If that was the law, there'd be some
it would be outrageous.
and people would be upset about it and want that law changed. It's just not true.
Right.
So a common sense gun reform based on a lie is not a common sense gun reform, though that is what they're trying to pitch it as. They're trying to say, okay, well, common sense, I think it's very common. It's part of common knowledge. People believe that you can go to a gun show and buy whatever you want. I think that is what people believe.
Because they keep repeating this lie.
Right. The media says it.
they do believe it.
They do believe it. It's common knowledge. It's just not true knowledge.
Right.
It's not actually a fact.
Right. At a gun show, a private gun owner can sell to another person, right? Isn't that what... That can happen at a gun show, I think.
It can happen, yes.
And that has happened where a private seller sells to somebody who came into the gun show.
It's so minor, though. It's such a small percentage of sales. It's such a small... I was talking to someone at the Heritage Foundation who testified in front of Congress a couple of weeks ago. And I asked her, I'm like, is there an argument... And I don't believe this, but again, your job as a host is to ask questions that you think might be interesting. And I said, is there an argument to say, hey, this is such a small percentage of sales. It is not an issue in this country. It really isn't. I mean, it's basically nothing.
Yeah, do we know of any gun crime that has been committed from person-to-person sale without a gun background check at a gun show?
I don't know of any off the top of my head.
I've never heard of it.
However,
never heard of it.
Is it possible that it's happened? Sure. Of course it's possible. It's very unlikely that it's certainly not a big. It's not a big factor in our overall crime problem, right? That is the big issue here,
right?
And I said Amy Swearer is her name, and I said, Amy, is there an argument to say maybe the right just gives up on that? They use this as a talking point all the time. And it's such a small percentage of sales. Maybe there's a way that we make it easy for a background check to go through on private sales. I don't know. You'd have to come up with a whole new system. There's all sorts of logistics in there. Is there an argument? And she agreed with me. No, you can't give one, I want to swear, inch to these people on this issue because they will take a mile every single time. You can't move a centimeter on guns because their goal is not a common sense reform. It is another step down the road to eventually have all of them gone. That's what they want. Mm-hmm. They're not going to tell you that. Though occasionally they will. We occasionally will hear them tell you that.
I will say it would be nice to have that argument completely eliminated.
Right, that's what I want.
But they'll still lie about it.
Yeah.
They'll still say
it's happening.
It can happen.
And then they'll find the next thing. Like ghost guns is the new one. Now, ghost guns, look, if you're a criminal and you want to go kill someone, there are much easier ways to get a gun, right? Mm-hmm. There is no reason for you to put it together in a kit. Now, yes, it has happened. Some people have done it. They do sell some of these things. Some shootings have occurred with these types of guns. But again, it's a minor percentage. It's much easier to go through a neighborhood and break into somebody's house and look for guns. You're much more likely to find guns doing that than going through the whole process of trying to build one. Yes, you could do it. It is possible. They have kits that make it somewhat easy.
And the kits have directions. Biden said so yesterday. There are directions. Yeah. Oh, really?
Really?
Huh. A kit with directions.
Amazing.
That's incredible.
But this is a society that we are constantly told cannot figure out how to get a driver's license to vote, but they're going to build their own guns? Really? It's so over the top insane.
It is. It's ridiculous.
I think they know they can't really do much of anything. If you look at the 6 things he wants to do, very few of them, some of them are like, we're going to recommend to states that they do things. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, that's not barely an executive order, right? Some of it really was nonsensical, but they're going after the ghost guns. Probably the biggest thing they're going after are these stabilizing grips as they're associated to pistols.
Yeah, the pistol brace.
Yeah, because those have become relatively common. Again, they're not involved in a lot of crimes at all, but they have become relatively common weapons for law-abiding citizens to own. And so that, therefore, I think part of that is because they know there's always a chance they're going to ban assault weapons. Mm-hmm. So if you get a similar feel from one of these weapons as an AR-15, though it's not an AR-15. It is a different type of weapon. It is a pistol. It just feels somewhat similar. So you get some of the package of an AR-15 without having to buy an AR-15, and because they might be coming to your door to take your AR-15. And there's other reasons to own them, but they're good weapons, and they are very effective, particularly for females, to be able to push back against attackers. Mm-hmm. You want to be able to hit the guy running at you, and you want to be able to stop them. And that should be something that should be you'd think the left would care about if they're so feminist and they care so much about these evil men that they tell us are raping people all the time and attacking people all the time. And, when it comes down to it, they don't seem to want to give any protection. They want to defund the police and take away the guns.
Yeah. And he continued with his false arguments. Cut number 2 from Joe Biden.
Nothing I'm about to recommend in any way impinges on the Second Amendment.
Nothing.
They're phony arguments suggesting that these are Second Amendment rights at stake from what we're talking about.
He knows phony arguments. He knows.
But no amendment,
he does.
No amendment to the Constitution is absolute.
Oh.
You can't yell You can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater. We call it freedom of speech.
You can.
From the very beginning, you couldn't own any weapon you wanted to own. From the very beginning, the Second Amendment existed. Certain people weren't allowed to have weapons. So the idea is just bizarre to suggest that some of the things we're recommending
It's
are
bizarre?
contrary to the Constitution.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gun
No,
violence
it's not
in this
bizarre.
country is an epidemic.
Would you be arrested if you yelled fire at a crowded theater?
No,
I don't think so. Would you be arrested, though, if you yelled
Because the Constitution
wolf?
does not say that a person can yell wolf in a crowded theater.
Yeah. Okay. So you can't yell wolf in a crowded theater, but you can yell fire.
I think you can yell wolf because particularly when there is a wolf in the theater. I've had several theater experiences
wolves?
where there's a pack of wolves
Oh, wow.
running through the theater.
That's scary.
And thank God Nancy Pelosi was
Scary.
there
Yeah.
to yell wolf. Gosh, she is awful.
So stupid.
By the way, I should point out, as we're telling you that Nancy Pelosi sucks, there's something called a Nancy Pelosi sucks pen.com that is available for you to tell everyone at work that Nancy Pelosi sucks. It's Nancy Pelosi sucks pen.com. By the way, David Harsanyi addressed the exact issue you're talking about, Pat, about fire in a crowded movie theater.
Okay.
This is a National Review yesterday. So Biden said you can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater and call it freedom of speech. Harsanyi, who's, by the way, an absolute expert on the Second Amendment, wrote an entire book about the history of guns, and he goes into a bunch of this stuff today. But he says, you absolutely can. This is probably the weakest and most infuriatingly overused analogy used in effort to restrict rights. The line, taken from Oliver Wendell Holmes in the decision Schneck versus the United States, and subsequently repeated by thousands of censorship apologists since, was at the heart of one of the most egregious violations of free expression in American history. The Schneck decision allowed the Wilson administration, Woodrow Wilson, to throw anti-war activists in prison for violating the Espionage Act of 1917. It's difficult to think of a more legitimate exercise of political expression than debating war and peace. In any event, Schneck was basically overturned by the Brandenburg versus Ohio decision. We've heard a lot about that one recently, which found that the First Amendment protects speech unless it is likely to incite, quote, imminent lawless action, which yelling fire in a theater does not. Wow. So you actually can.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't recommend it, but you actually can yell fire in a theater.
And what about wolf?
But you cannot yell wolf.
You can't
under
yell wolf.
no circumstances.
Can I yell coyote? Coyote! Is that okay?